It is September 8th, 2018, and we're in St. Helena at Shotzi's house, and I'm with my cousin Joanie Kaufman, and I'm going to ask you some questions, and you will do the best you can. And we're going to start off with, why don't you say your name, your full name. What's your full name?
Joan Skall Kaufman.
Okay. Did you have a middle name when you were younger?
Joan Korak Skall Kaufman.
There you go. Look at me. How old are you now?
86.
And what's your birth date?
2/16/32.
And where were you born?
In Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay. And I think what I'm going to do is when you and Shotzi come through, we'll do the other stuff, the kind of background. So I'm going to start with some childhood questions. Joanie, what is your earliest memory?
Of childhood?
Yeah, of your life.
Oh gosh, there's so many.
Good. Well,
But I do remember going down the stairs for the first time in my life. I was 2-something, and it was very exciting. That was when we lived on Demington Drive, and that was major. And then I remember when I was turning 3, they had a surprise birthday for me after my nap. And I got down there and I cried because they were singing and I didn't know it was going to happen, and I guess I wasn't a candidate for a surprise party. And they quit singing and then it was better. So.
and what was the address of Demington?
2236 Demington Drive, Cleveland Heights, Ohio.
And what kind of neighborhood was it?
Oh, I want to tell you, at that time, we had a mailman named Jim who had a dog, like a German Shepherd, which was named Molly. Excuse me.
Yes.
And I would wait for Jim to come with Molly and walk with him up the street for a while and then go back home. And Molly was wonderful.
Oh, it's unusual to have a mailman with a dog.
Yes.
Well, especially today.
I also remember the milk truck coming with the horse drawing it there, and the ice truck coming, and how the ice was put into the refrigerator in an ice section, which was several areas on a wall. You know, you had 4 refrigerators and ice in the center. You're too young to know that. And then a water faucet coming out in that ice cold area. And the house was wonderful.
The Demington house, that isn't the house that Aunt Pet and...
Yes.
It is that house? That's
Yes,
the same house that
it
you grew up
stayed
in?
the family. And for a while it was Sadie's house, because she didn't need the house they had built on Fairmount Boulevard. She was living there by herself. So they traded, Mildred and David, my parents, traded their big house, you know, with Sadie, so to speak. And then, because they were outgrowing the little house, I guess.
Oh, okay.
And Sadie didn't need to be alone on Fairmount Boulevard, the big house.
Right.
And then it ended up, Sadie moved into the big house on Fairmount Boulevard.
With you?
Yes. She had the first bedroom. As you got up the stairs, there was a landing, and it was on the right, and it was next, and she had her own bathroom and a sleeping porch that had a bed that came out of the wall. I forget what you call those beds now. And sometimes I slept on that bed because it was crowded in the house. We had company. And I was always afraid the bed would spring up at me and I'd be caught in it in the wall. But one of the first things I remember a real estate agent saying, "What? The mother-in-law had the bedroom next door to her daughter and son-in-law? I never heard of such a thing." You know, a privacy thing, I guess.
And who else lived in that house with you?
Okay, my brother and my sister, and the help. There was a back hall on the second floor for help.
And how many, when you say help, how many people?
We had a visiting laundress named Eleanor. We had a permanent cook, Teresa, and we had Mary. She was also permanent, and but they weren't there at the same time. And then we had Beatrice, who was my governess/nurse. And we had Rose, who was a maid.
And did
They had their own
Did
bathroom.
Jeannie live with you for part of that time at all?
Pardon me?
Did Jeannie live with you at all?
Jeannie was wonderful. She came over, but she didn't, I'm trying to think where she would have lived in that house. Spent a lot of time with us. Let me try to think of that. What room? Maybe she was in Shatzi's room because Shatzi was already off to college. I don't remember that clearly enough.
Okay,
But
okay.
Jeannie and I were best of friends from a very young age because she was then younger than me, and I loved that because I didn't like being the youngest one.
Do you know what hospital you were born in?
Yeah, I believe I was born at, is it called Hannah? It's Hannah,
The Hannah Pavilion?
yeah,
Hannah.
something like that.
Okay, was it
I
Mount,
don't think
was it
it,
Mount
I
Sinai?
don't think it was Mount Sinai.
Okay.
But-
You don't remember anything like how much you weighed or anything like that?
Well, they were worried about me, and this is funny. I don't think there was a weight problem, but I was bald. And they were very upset. And the old-fashioned deal was to rub my scalp with bay rum or something to make hair grow. Well, I want to tell you, they did a heck of a job. I got plenty of hair. And I'm grateful that I do, of course.
And where were you in birth order?
Youngest of three.
Youngest of three. That's
Yes.
what I thought.
I was the runt of the litter. There was 3 years difference between me and Shotzi, and then 3 more between Shotzi and Matt.
Let's talk about your brothers and your sisters.
All right.
What do you remember? Any funny stories about any mischief or trouble you got into with your brother or sister?
I didn't get into trouble. They were the ones who got into trouble. We had an elevator in the house on Fairmount Boulevard. And it was for bringing up trunks and things, not a people elevator. And that's another story. And then there was when a garage door opener first came in. That was interesting, but that's Shotzi's story.
Okay. And so your older brother, David,
My older brother,
Mac, I'm sorry.
Malcolm, Mackie.
Right, your dad was David, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, and he, tell me a little bit about him.
He was very quiet. He was very, very quiet. The reason was he had a stutter, so he did not talk a lot. So we called him Won't Tell. That was a nickname we gave him. But he was outgrowing that, thankfully, rather soon, and he made up for it, and it was not a problem.
Well, that's good.
As I recall, that's the way I remember it.
Did you and Shotzi and Mac ever have any fights?
Fights? I wasn't a fighter,
Okay.
no.
Do you remember any kind of discipline at all when you were younger?
Discipline, only one. from my mother. She was upset with me when I was at Hathaway Brown in maybe first, second, or third grade, I forget, and I didn't want to go to a program. And she said, well, you have to. If you don't, I'm going to have to spank you. And she very lightly tapped me on the butt. And that's the only real discipline.
And so you went to Hathaway Brown.
Well, yes, I started at Hathaway Brown, as did Shotzi. Malcolm went to university school. And Shotzi and I went to HB. And I was there kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. Then there was a gas shortage and war. And Dad said, gas rationing, take the girls out of HB, they can go to Roxborough. So we could walk to Roxborough. So we went to Roxborough. I in fourth grade, and Shotzi and, I don't know, whatever it was. Or did she stay at HB? Can't remember, she'll tell you. And I think she was at Roxborough. It wasn't easy, but we did it all. And then in ninth grade, I was back at Hathaway Brown for 9, 10, 11, and 12. And Shotzi was back there for 11 and 12, as I recall. She'll make this more factual.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meanwhile, Dad was stationed at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., so we had a year there. And during that year, I went to the National Cathedral Girls' School, and so did she. And also, he was stationed before that in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, and South Carolina, I think it was Fort Sumter, all while he was in the Army. Of course, we have tons of memories.
That's great. Do you remember, I want to touch base on some of his military experience, because I know that there's some amazing stories there when you and Shotzi are together in a few minutes. But in the meantime, at school, do you remember anything that really stood out for you in terms of any one grade or anything that...
Which school?
At HB.
HB? I was not happy there. For me, it was difficult being Jewish. We were rare there, and they were not happy. It's changed now, and I'm very supportive of HB because they have changed, but it was difficult.
Anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. And also, I was not a good student. I didn't misbehave, but I just was not a good student. I was never academically terrific. I was so-so.
Do you think you were distracted, or do you think you just didn't?
No, I think as time went on and I learned what happened to kids since then, that I probably had an attention deficit thing because I couldn't seem to learn cursive writing. I couldn't give a summary of what was going on. I'm talking all the way through school. I had trouble. I could do by rote, but I couldn't do comprehensive. That was my problem at school.
And so when did you start playing the piano?
First or second grade, it was the best thing that ever happened. It was the only thing I really liked to do. My mother really never had to tell me to practice. I had a lot of fun with it.
And you still do today?
Yeah, I volunteer it.
Yeah.
Oldies for oldies.
Right, but you still love playing.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. I can't say I'm wonderful. After all those years, you'd think I'd be a lot better than I am, but it's fun.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm still learning.
And you had a piano at the house?
Oh yeah, they had a piano on, on Demington, and I have that piano with me now.
That's
Yeah,
great. That's
still
great.
works great.
The player piano? And how about that?
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
Yeah, I got lots of piano rolls.
So let's talk about How would you describe yourself as a child? What were you like?
I would say as bashful and non-aggressive and I don't know what else to say.
How would other people describe you as a
Probably
child?
the same.
So when did all the silliness kick in?
Oh, Tony, silliness. Oh, I think as a teenager. With other friends, not at HB, good friends elsewhere, friends who were my parents' friends' kids in some cases.
Did you go to temple?
Well, that's another funny story.
Okay.
Late, because they thought maybe I should get confirmed. Well, I went for a couple of years. I couldn't learn Hebrew. I got tutored in it. I just couldn't learn it. And at that time, you had to know it.
What temple?
Brickner. And the people were very nice, but I couldn't learn the Hebrew. So this is a good story, when I was supposed to be confirmed, you know, the people at my age, I got some presents from my parents' friends who thought they just took it for granted that I was getting confirmed, and they sent presents. And I told my mother, I'm sending these back. You can't do that. You must write a thank you note and say thank you very much, but don't tell them you weren't confirmed. Good memory.
Well, that's
Bad
good.
memory.
Good and bad. Well, you got the presents.
Yeah, I wasn't going to use them for ages, then I said to heck with it, I will.
Good for you. Good for you.
Do you want to hear a funny story when I was a kid?
Sure.
A teenager, Fairmount Boulevard, and I had a window in my bedroom closet. It was a walk-in closet, and there was space. And one day, I saw this sign on a street not too far away that said "Men Working." It was yellow with black letters, big black letters. Took it home, snuck it in my room, put it in the closet, faced it out the window. My parents never knew it was there. But Dr. Sam Friedlander saw it because he lived across the driveway. It was a double driveway. And when I got that, he said, Joanie, what did your parents think of that when you got it? I said, please don't tell them. They have no idea it's there.
That's
a funny memory.
That is a good memory.
There's a P.S. to it.
Yes.
The P.S. is when the folks moved to Chicago and I would come to live there for a while, Rabbi Silver's son, Danny Silver, was part of the family. The Silvers were, and the Brickners. And the folks, my mother preferred Silvers, my dad preferred Brickners, to go to his temples. So anyway, Danny Silver came over and we were going to the movies one night, and on the way home, I said, oh my gosh, there's a Men Working sign there. So I told him the story. He says, do you want me to bring it home to you in Chicago now? I said, no, we can't. There's no place to put it.
So you were living in Chicago at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think
That was after school was over, etc. While I was going to Northwestern for a minute.
Do you think you had a happy childhood?
No, I did not love my childhood.
Because?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. What is one of your favorite memories, though, of a childhood?
One of my favorite, having a dog. I love my dog, our dog. Yeah, standard French poodle, Juliet, but we called her Julie, black.
Oh.
She was wonderful. I'll tell you a quick story. When Dad went in the Army, that left my mother unattended, and the dog always slept outside of my door. But when Dad left, she moved over to sleep in front of my mother's door.
Oh,
That's a sweet story.
it is a sweet
It's
story.
one of my favorites.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
What, do you remember any games you played as a child?
Oh, yes. Jacks, pick up sticks, tag. We played on the street on Woodmere. There was a bunch of us who would go out and play. And biking. There's another game we used to play. You hid something and then you went to find it. What was that? I can't remember. Hide and go seek. You could be yourself. But I think we hid an object. And you'd say you're getting closer, hot, cold. And growing up more, I loved charades. Teenage time, and that was super.
What about sports? Did you play any sports?
I was poorly coordinated, never really got any better. But I liked to ice skate. And I enjoyed that a lot. Shotzi and I would often go ice skating down at the arena, at the Elysium, down at University Circle,
Okay.
and where they had hockey games, etc. It was wonderful. Also, the governess I had was a fabulous knitter, sewer, and she made little outfits for us. And I remember skating in one of those outfits.
Speaking of knitting, how did you learn, or when did you learn to knit?
Well, my mother did knitting, Nurse Beebe did knitting, and a cousin, Carolyn Skall, did knitting, and I said, I'm gonna knit. And my mother did it productively during World War II. They knitted stuff for soldiers, hats and things or whatever. I took up knitting, I think after I got married.
Oh, okay.
I waited a long, I didn't have time, I never would have thought of it.
Do you have any memorable or important dreams as a child?
Dreams?
Yes.
Nightmares. I get recurring nightmares and dreams now. But one of the scary ones I will never forget was I got on an elevator and it was going sideways. And when it went down, it went into a puddle of water, black water. But I survived it.
You still have that dream today?
I don't have that dream, but I sometimes dream about going sideways. And when I still joke about it, because I'm living in an apartment with an elevator, I say, what floor do you want? Do you want to go sideways or up and down?
That's funny. Any ambitions as a child on what you might have wanted to do when you kind of grew up?
That's interesting. What did I want to do? Yes. I used to have fun writing jingles. You know what I mean? Silly stuff. And I thought I'd like to do that for a living, like in advertising. Go into the, whatever you call it. What's that department in advertising? Where they
Like a creative?
Yeah, but there was a name for it. Anyway, so I worked when I was in Chicago. I worked at J. Walter Thompson, which is still an ongoing big firm, in their public relations department. And unfortunately, it wasn't the creative writing department. And I thought, well, maybe if I'm here, I'll get into it. But I didn't. I didn't stay long enough, and I didn't have any chance to show them that I could possibly be creative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm gonna kind of move on.
I did start off with classical piano and then switch to popular, as they called it back then, because Shotzi and Matt got so tired of hearing Beethoven and Mozart. Said, come on, you gotta learn stuff that we know, you know, hit parade type stuff. So I did, and I was very happy I did. It was wonderful. That's a wonderful childhood experience.
Were the three of you close?
I don't know. I can't answer that.
Did you how much older was Mac?
6 years ahead of me. And he wasn't around because after high school, he went off to the University of Pennsylvania. And then war comes along, Dad joins up, and he wanted to, but he got refused just because with the nervousness of seeing if he could get in, that stutter kicked in. So he went to be a diplomat with the, whatever you call that department of the United States. And he ended up traveling all over. It was the best. Well, here's a guy who won't tell. He's not going to tell anything he shouldn't.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he was perfect for that job. And the job was perfect for him. And then he went to a regular.
Let's touch on briefly a few other things, like celebrating Thanksgiving or New Year's. Do you remember any, or even, I don't know if
Well,
you celebrate.
families getting together.
Was there anything memorable about Thanksgiving? Do you remember if you would get together with Jeannie and Artie or Carrie, or you'd get together with
Well, we were at
Candy and
Sadie's.
Susie?
Well, Sadie, Grandma Sadie, she had everybody over for the most part.
And where was she
Really
then?
Well,
Oh, she was in on Demington at that point, I guess, and you were on Fairmont.
she had some stuff on Demington, and she also had her apartment at Shaker Towers. And we had these events at our house when we were all on Fairmount Boulevard.
But you remember that, was that a big ritual, Thanksgiving, everybody getting together?
I think so.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. What about family vacations?
Family vacation. I don't think our family ever went away together all together.
Interesting.
I don't think so.
Okay.
See, we all went to camp in the summer. And we loved our camp.
What camp did you go to?
Triplake Camp in Poland, Maine. And Mac went to Kennebec. My dad had gone to Kennebec, as I recall.
Yeah, Kennebec was around when I was going to camp.
There you go.
Yeah. What about, so your first 12 years or so, you didn't really move around too much. You were pretty much in Cleveland the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you probably, there really weren't that many, there weren't any significant deaths in our family at that point. I
Any
guess
significant?
deaths.
Yes?
Death.
Deaths. Oh.
Because Sadie, just Sig was, I guess.
I remember when Sig died.
Okay.
And they didn't tell me, but Shotzi did. And I remember meeting him only once and how sad he looked. That's my memory.
Why do you think he looked so sad?
I had no idea. Well, obviously he was depressed.
What year were you born again?
What did you say?
What year were you born? You were born in what year?
32.
32.
It was the Great Depression time.
Right, so he just, so you only met him when you were a real a toddler then, because.
I didn't really, quote, know him.
Right.
I just saw him.
Okay. Let's talk a few more minutes. Are you good for some more time?
I'm good for more time. These questions are making me giggle.
Okay, good. Good. Let's talk a little bit about your teenage years. I want to hear about your first date. Do you remember any dates?
Yeah, I gotta tell you this one. This is wonderful. I had braces. And I had a date with a guy for New Year's Eve over at a friend's house where she had a party. And everybody yelled, New Year's Eve, lights out, time to give, kisses. So.
Do you remember whose house it was?
Yeah, but I'm not going to say.
Oh, you want to get in trouble.
She's long gone anyway, but I don't want
Okay.
to say. And I could be wrong.
Okay.
I'm remembering it. So all of a sudden, this person grabs me starts to kiss me, and I don't either refuse or respond. But as we started to kiss, my braces bit him. And he yelled, "Ow!" And everybody got hysterical, including me. And I will never forget it. And I don't think he could forget it either. It was pretty darn funny.
No name with the kisser, or are you going to give up the kisser's name?
Well, I'm not going to tell.
Yeah, tell.
I'm not telling.
Why?
I don't want to.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit, just because we can always revisit some of this stuff. But I really am curious is about how you met Jules.
Well, that's easy.
Okay.
I was living in Chicago. I would always come back and stay either with Pet and Al,
On Dennington,
right, or with Sadie in her apartment.
on Shaker Boulevard.
And I much preferred to stay with Pet and Al, and they would let me babysit for Susie and Candy, and we had a blast. And it was, I'm saying babysit, just to be there as a
Right, because they were teenagers then.
Yeah. Anyway, go back to the first part of the question.
Meeting Jules.
Meeting Jules, okay. So, Jules was from Danville, Virginia. And the year was, oh Lord, David is 60 this year. So it would be like 61 years ago if you want to figure it out. Something like that, let's say 62 years ago.
Late 50s. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I was pushing 25, I think. Whatever. Anyway, a good friend of mine I met, Ruthie and Alan Miller. She was from West Virginia, Wheeling, West Virginia. Alan Miller had been roommates with Jules Kaufman at the University of Virginia. And he invited Jules to come to Cleveland quite often. And one time, we met. And that's how we met. And I was in Chicago. So I said, come and see me in Chicago. So he did. And that was when I knew what was going to go on. Ask permission, make an announcement, and...
How long did you date for?
Oh, it was easily a year, I'm sure. I can't remember.
And was it, so you were living on Fullerton?
I'm sorry?
Where were you living in Chicago?
With my folks in Chicago, 399 Fullerton Park.
Fullerton,
Lincoln
okay.
Park. Right, you could walk to the zoo, you could hear the elephants at night. May I tell you a funny story?
Sure.
My father had a marvelous sense of humor. He was quiet, he was understated, but boy did he have a sense of humor. Jules' family comes in from North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. And Dad, they had to move furniture in order to have the wedding at my house, at my parents' apartment, I should say. And we weren't that many, and it was mostly family and a few close friends. So they were moving the furniture, and a furniture truck was out there and pulling stuff out. And as the last piece of furniture was being pulled out, because they came over the day before, Dad got them tickets to a show, which probably was My Fair Lady that was playing in Chicago at that time. So he got 3 or 4 tickets for the family to go. And Jules had no parents, so it wasn't for his parents. I made a mistake when I said that. It was for his cousins with whom he was very close, or aunt and uncle.
He had no parents.
They had died. I never met his parents. I only met his aunts and uncles,
Okay.
cousins. So when they came to the door, he says, "Welcome, I'm sorry, but we had to sell the furniture in order to have this wedding." And of course they were so upset. Don't worry about it, everything's fine. In fact, here are tickets for you to go to theater tonight." And, he was just funny that way.
That is funny.
Yeah, it is.
Do you remember the marriage proposal? Do you remember when Jules actually proposed and how he did that? Or where or when?
I don't recall that moment, actually. Somehow or other, I think we was either down at the, I don't know.
Don't remember.
No.
And then the family's reaction with Jules, and I mean, he was, kind of a Southern gentleman, but
Not Jules.
what was your family's reaction to Jules?
I think they were skeptical, because they didn't have anything, he attached to nothing in their life, and they were, well, I'll just leave it at that. I think they were skeptical.
Was there anything in particular you fell in love with Jules?
Say that.
Was there something in particular that you fell in love with Jules?
Oh, you mean about him?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of things. First of all, he was a very creative man. Second of all, he's one of the smartest, some people said a genius, really smart guy. Third of all, no one ever heard him say a bad thing about anybody. Another thing is, he wanted to help anybody he could, wherever they were at any time. He was so clever building things. Do you remember any of it?
I do.
The wine rack, for example, in the kitchen, the way he set up the kitchen table in our house.
What about the milk bottle for David?
Oh, he made a holder for it so I didn't have to sit while David was in his high chair. You remember that?
Well, I remember my dad telling the story about how David would push it away and it would come shooting back and hit David.
Well, the day that David pushed it away was after he'd been at Shotzi's, because her son Andy didn't have one. He was a little bit older, and he saw that and he said, "I don't want a bottle anymore."
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then wasn't there something that he set up on Chadbourne so he could paint the house? Didn't he, like a scaffolding that went outside the window and he would close the window on it?
Oh, you remember that about Jules?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. He used belts. I said, "You can't stand out there like that. That's not secure." So he made a platform, piece of wood, stuck it out the window, and when my friends would drive by, they stopped and they were petrified and they yelled, "What are you doing? You're doing, it's terrible. Be careful," And everybody in the neighborhood was going, "Woo!" So it all worked out fine.
And then I remember a story too about
Oh God, there's so many stories.
about a fishing trip that you went with Jeannie and Roger on, and didn't he set up some sort of bed in your Volkswagen or something so he could sleep while you were driving? Do you remember that at all? And you hit a big bump and Jules just shot up. Do you remember that story?
No.
Okay.
I remember what he made for David in the car.
What did he do?
He made like a mini crib. I don't know what you call them now, because it's seats for kids.
Like a car seat?
There was no car seat.
Right, but he made something like
He made
that.
something for David in the back so that David wouldn't fall. And you could put it on the floor in the back, etc. And he was perfectly safe. But I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Well, I just want to say that Jules was always there for us, and we really appreciated him, because I remember calling him a couple times to come over, and he was very sweet. Let me see here.
Well, he had a unique thing. Jess Lair, I always forget his name, something like that, said, it was a book about friendships and stuff. You have to have 5 friends. You got to get together with them maybe once or twice or 3 times a month, because that gives you a sense of community and you have friends. And Jules did that. And Jules was very supportive of people who had problems. Very supportive. Went out of his way. That's the reason we started going to Big Al's Diner on Larchmere in Cleveland. He had been an alcoholic, and he established a restaurant. No liquor or wine served. It was really breakfast, lunch, and supper too, but alcoholics would go there. Recovering alcoholics is what I'm saying.
And why would Jules go there?
Because he had a couple of very good friends who had alcohol problems.
Interesting.
And he was very, very supportive. He would go to their meetings with them when they asked him to.
The AA meetings?
Yes.
That's very nice.
Sometimes they wanted friends there. He told the people, ask a friend to come. Yep.
Okay. So we're gonna ask, well, do you remember where did you live? What was your first home after you got married?
Funniest story you'll ever hear about that. My parents were very proper, and they had plenty of money to spend wherever they wanted, whatever they wanted to do. They weren't frivolous with it, but they could afford to do it, and they were generous. So I married Jules. I live in his bachelor apartment, which is in the basement
In what city?
in Shaker
Okay.
on Northmoreland. That street where, just
I know.
not where Larchmere comes
I know
in.
exactly where it is.
Okay. And they were coming to town. They were staying at Sadie's at Shaker Towers. And they came over at a certain time. Jules was home from work. And we had just set up a tent because we were going to go on a fishing trip. And they walk in to the tent. That's all they could see when they walked in. Oh my God, they're living in a tent in the basement. You know, what is going on here? Meanwhile, in the building, people they knew lived there, you know, all ages. They were not happy when they saw this place, needless to say. That's a funny story.
So when you said they were very generous, did they end up doing something? Because you mentioned, they're very generous before you started.
They wouldn't.
They didn't get you a house, or they didn't move you.
We stayed there for a while, and then after David was born, we were kind of outgrowing the place, and I don't know, did it? No, I don't think I was.
Well, I remember it really well, because I remember Mom and Dad dropping me off there once when they went to Florida, and I was like 8 or 9 months old. You told me that story.
Dude.
You told me that.
We had a crib for you.
Now, I remember you telling me a story about how Mom and Dad were off to Florida or someplace, and I stayed with you. So why don't we end there, and we could always continue some other time, because there's so much to cover. But we went for 45 minutes, and it's a good opportunity for you to take a little break, and then we'll get Shotzi, and then we'll get the 2 of you for a little while. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Good?
Tony, that was fun.
Good. I enjoyed it. I love you.
I love you too.